Welcome to the Pit Village podcast. Thank you for joining us. Now today, I want to talk about a topic that is very important to myself, and we are in Mental Health Month. In the States, May is dedicated towards mental health. Of course, here in the UK, we have Mental Health Awareness Week, which is from the 10th to the 16th of May, and this year they're focusing on nature. So if you do want to check that out, of course, just look it up online, Mental Health Foundation. And there's a lot of information there about mental health. And of course, this week in particular, they're talking about nature and reconnecting with the outdoors, getting active, getting yourself outside. And that is a big thing, isn't it, for us all, particularly through this year where we've sort of been locked away in our homes. Of course, it's not been good for anybody's mental health. And to start off with, we're going to define mental health, which is the condition of someone's mind, or whether or not they are suffering from any mental illness, which actually I don't like because we associate mental health too much with mental illness. And in business English, mental health, this is from Cambridge Dictionary, we've got the condition of the mind that shows whether someone is feeling happy, able to work, etc. So of course, for me, mental health is your ability to maintain your life, isn't it, on a daily basis, and actually move forward in life towards something and feel good about that, feel satisfied, feel like you are actually contributing towards something at least, whether that is for yourself, in your career, for your family. There's a lot of things, isn't there, that you need to look at when you talk about mental health. For me, it's about living a stable life that grounds you, so you build yourself a life that you actually want to live rather than trapping yourself in a life that you actually feel a slave to. And a lot of people do this. A lot of people trap themselves in a life where they feel like they're sort of a slave, either to their own mind, to the job role, or maybe even to the family and to other people. And they don't actually put themselves first. And therefore, they don't create themselves a life that they actually want to live. And I've got an uncle, he was addicted to heroin as I was growing up. Obviously, that sort of really put it into my mind what that can do to a family. It obliterates a family when somebody is addicted to such a hard drug like that. And of course, through my life, I've not been perfect. I developed a gambling addiction very early. I then started smoking. So of course, and drinking, smoking cannabis, all the stuff that we do. We pick up bad habits in his teenage years, and they can follow us into his 20s. And actually, we can create ourselves a life that is not ideal. And of course, that doesn't make us happy, does it, long term, and satisfied with what we're doing. So this is mental health for me. It's about actually creating yourself a life that you want to live. And just a bit of background, like I say, I come from this family that have got these mental health issues and drug addictions. My father was an heroin addict, and of course, it's not easy. That does break your family a little bit. I'm thankful that my mother and stepfather, the guy that's brought me up, the guy that I call dad, that I can be appreciative that I've still got a family unit there that has taught me how to be, normal in essence, and sort of live a life that is comfortable and you can be satisfied. You can go on holiday, you can have a good life. It doesn't have to be mayhem. But I've seen the mayhem. I've seen drug addicts and people shooting up and people smoking crack, and I've been exposed to these things. I then went to work at the probation service and studied counselling for 3 years. So I studied counselling, mainly humanistic counselling, which is Carl Rogers, which I want to speak about a little bit. When you form a therapeutic relationship with somebody, all you are trying to do is get them to be their authentic self and move towards a goal that actually serves them and allows them to create a life that they want to live. When you look at somebody's life, there's several things that you'll look at to, I suppose, assess if they can live in society. Again, coming from the probation service and the rehabilitation, they look at the mental health and the social group and the career prospects and the family unit and the living accommodation, the education, the skill set. So it's a wide range of different things. You can't just be one-dimensional in life. And I think for me, at the moment, I spoke about it last month, I've had a little bit of a mental breakdown because I've been living one-dimensionally. I've been trying to achieve my goal in business and create myself this dream of having my own life. But really, I'm creating myself a trap because I've become so obsessed with running a company that I haven't looked at my life outside of the business and my family unit and my physical health and my mental stimulation and where I'm going long term. And, it's just all been about this year, what I can do. Let me get these customers. And then you create yourself an ongoing job and you can become a workaholic. A lot of us just get lost in work. We can get lost in social media and TV and other mediums such as YouTube. How often do you sit there and 3 hours has passed and you've just been looking at YouTube? And how do you feel about yourself when you've done that? And when you do these things, when you are being distracted by social media and allowing YouTube or the TV to take up a lot of your time, is that serving you long term? But also, when you do that, assess your mood when you are turning to these mediums. Are you in a good mood when you do this? Or are you already in a bad mood and then you're fueling that by actually just consuming garbage and consuming stuff on social media and just scrolling? This all contributes to your mental health at the end of the day. But we're going to take a look today at the core conditions, at the therapeutic relationship, and what you're actually doing when you are building a relationship with somebody therapeutically as a counsellor, and how that can benefit somebody, and how maybe you can do this for yourself. Think about some of these concepts for yourself in your own life, but also create a relationship with other people that sort of allows for these sort of conditions that are set within a therapeutic relationship. It can be very hard, and I'm not abdicating that you become somebody's counsellor or therapist or try to be a therapist to a friend or a family member. Oftentimes that doesn't actually work, but we can be mindful of these things in order to create relationships and have conversations with other people where we may be able to learn and we may be able to help others, allow them to express themselves, which will ultimately allow us to express ourselves better, because if we all listen and we all actually communicate in more effective ways, then what else sort of serves us more in life than being able to communicate better? So, first and foremost, any therapeutic relationship is about listening. It's talking therapy. The practitioner's job, the counselor's job, is to listen. And this was developed by Sigmund Freud, who of course developed the psychodynamic approach to counseling. The founding father of psychology right there, Sigmund Freud, obviously published dozens and dozens of books. As much as I've studied psychology at an A-level and studied for 3 years counseling, Sigmund Freud's work still baffles me. He was a genius. A lot of us can look back and sort of, it's 2020 hindsight, isn't it now? We've got all this scientific development about the mind. But in the late 1800s, when Sigmund Freud was proposing these ideas, again, sort of early explanations for mental illness were that it was all superstition, basically. It was based upon religious belief. The mental disorders and the association with your mind and your spirit and your body, of course, were proposed by people like Plato and Hippocrates, but it will move forward very rapidly during the 1900s. Of course, over the last 100 years, all frontiers of development have been staggering, hasn't it, really, from technology to being able to communicate with each other on a global world, to the poverty rates declining worldwide. It's been astounding what we've been able to do, really, in 100 years. But in the late 1800s, when Sigmund Freud were proposing these ideas, it was completely new. He was the guy who said, look, we've got a subconscious mind, we've got an unconscious mind, and we feed that through our desires. And of course, eventually, the idea was that your sort of mind is split up to the id, the ego, and the super ego. And he developed talking therapy and free association. Essentially, you go to Sigmund Freud, he'd sit there, you'd lie down, and you'd just talk and he'd just listen. And that's how talking therapy developed. And then following Freud, it moved on with people such as Carl Jung and Abraham Maslow, who would eventually, Carl Jung would develop his work in under Freud, basically, and then branch off and develop his own way of understanding the mind. And that would then feed into the ways of how we are. It's basically the nurture and nature. Sigmund Freud said that a lot of it is subconscious and unconscious desires, and basically your memories of childhood that you've repressed, that you need to overcome, and it's all built up into your subconscious mind. And Carl Jung would argue that no, actually, society is built upon this collective unconscious, and we are individuals, and we go through what is called individualization, and that is the process of your psychological integration into society and into the collective consciousness. And we move forward with talking therapy when Abraham Maslow, in particular, develops a hierarchy of needs, which is used not only within psychology, but within business. And if you've not seen the hierarchy of needs, I would definitely look it up, but it starts at the physiological, which your bottom level needs are sort of breathing, it's food, it's water, it's the things that you can't live without, sleep, sex. And then, of course, you've got the next level, which is safety, which is your security of your body, mind, employment, health, property, morality, resources, your family. So it's getting that stable foundation within your life. You've got your physiological needs, which is being able to breathe, have water, food. And then just above that is your safety. Right, I've got a little bit of shelter. I can pay the bills, basically. After that, you look for love and belonging, which comes from friendships, family, sexual intimacy. And then one above that would be your esteem, which is your self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, and your respect by others. And then at the top of your hierarchy of needs, you've got your self-actualization, which is your morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem-solving, lack of prejudice, and acceptance of facts. So to be a fully functioning person, you would have to sort of first off get the physiological needs right, so being able to breathe, food, water. And for a long time, that were hard to have enough food to survive, were hard for people, and it still is for many people across the world. But here in the UK, I see a lot of homeless. I live in Leeds now. I see a lot of homeless people knocking about. It's not good. Sort of safety. After that, after your physiological needs, you got your needs to be safe within the world. Have a little bit of resources. Got a property. My health's okay. Family unit's okay. And then it's a love and belonging. Friendships. Again, family, sexual intimacy. And then it becomes your esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others. And then you got your self-actualization. So I do apologise that I've just repeated that twice, the hierarchy of needs. But at the end of the day, this is a big thing in society, and it's used within organisations to hire and motivate employees. And, of course, this is where Carl Rogers would pick up. He will pick up on what is defined as self-actualization. And this is achieving the fullest use of one's talents and interests. The need to become everything that one is capable of becoming. So self-actualization, it's highly individualistic and reflects Maslow's premise that the self is sovereign and entitled to his or her own tastes, opinions, and values. So what are the qualities of the self-actualizing person? And this is where Carl Rogers will pick up. So we've got the founding father of psychology, Sigmund Freud. It then moved on to Carl Jung, who taught more about actually being an individual and the nurture part of things and the collective consciousness. But Carl Rogers would actually pick up where they left off and develop a technique to work with people in what's called a person-centered approach. And this would encourage people to become self-actualizing people. So according to Abraham Maslow, first off, who has developed this hierarchy of needs in which the person-centered approach is based, so Carl Rogers would be looking to take somebody to the place of self-actualization and looking at where is their emptiness coming from in life, and where do their problems come from in their life, where they want to go, and encourage them to become a self-actualizing person, which, according to Abraham Maslow, who had developed this hierarchy of needs, the self-actualizing person shares the following qualities: truth, goodness, beauty, wholeness, dichotomy, aliveness, uniqueness, perfection, necessity, completion, justice, order, simplicity, richness, effortlessness, playfulness, self-sufficiency. So this is about being self-determining, independent, having some autonomy, being fun and joyful. That lack of strain. The richness giving you your differentiation. The simplicity. Just being blunt with things. And then, of course, going back to the first points, the truth, the goodness, beauty, wholeness. These are the points that Abraham Maslow would make towards your own human potential. And, of course, he looked at some of these people in the past, historic figures who have been self-actualized. Henry Ford, Albert Einstein. And Carl Rogers would use the person-centered approach in psychotherapy, which is talking therapy, which is counselling. And for me, it was the best approach. It was the best approach to actually take somebody and, rather than imposing your thoughts and processes upon them, it makes sense that you would want to allow them to express themselves in a way that is unique to them and to find their own goals in life and where they want to be and increase their own self-awareness. And of course, this is what the person-centered approach was about. So Carl Rogers, rather than looking at things from a psychodynamic point of view and, which would be a Sigmund Freud, unconscious, the subconscious, the id, the ego, superego, he actually looked at people as basically striving towards becoming a fully functioning person. And he said that this can be facilitated through a client-centered approach, a person-centered approach, so client-centered therapy. And the humanistic approach would rely upon optimal development of a person, and he would define his own fully functioning person, which would be, number one, a growing openness to experience. They move away from defensiveness and have no need for subception, which is a perceptual defense that involves unconsciously applying strategies to prevent a troubling stimulus from encountering consciousness. So basically what he's saying is you need to be open to growth and experience in order to be a fully functioning person and have what he calls a good life, where an organism continually aims to fulfill its own potential. And that is what a fully functioning person would do. Number two, an increasingly existential lifestyle, living each moment fully, not distorting the moment to fit personality or self-concept, but allowing personality and self-concept to emanate from the experience. This results in excitement, daring, adaptability, tolerance, spontaneity, and suggests a foundation of trust. An increasing self-trust will be the third. They trust their own judgment and their ability to choose behavior that is appropriate for each moment. They do not rely on existing codes and social norms, but trust that as they are open to experience, they will be able to trust their own sense of right and wrong. Number four, freedom of choice, not being shackled by the restrictions that influence an incongruent individual. They are able to make a wider range of choices more fluently. They believe that they play a role in determining their own behavior, so they feel responsible for their own behavior. Number five, creativity. It follows that they will feel more free to be creative. They will also be more creative in the way they adapt to their own circumstances without feeling a need to conform. Reliability and constructiveness. They can be trusted to act constructively. An individual who is open to all their needs will be able to maintain a balance between them. Even aggressive needs will be matched and balanced by the intrinsic goodness in congruent individuals. A rich, full life. he describes the life of a fully functioning individual as rich, full, and exciting, and suggests that they experience joy and pain, love and heartbreak, fear and courage more intensely. Rogers' description of the good life. The process of the good life is not, I am convinced, a life for the faint-hearted. It involves the stretching and growing of becoming more and more of one's potentialities. It involves the courage to be. It means launching oneself fully into the stream of life. So, this is a fully functioning person, according to Carl Rogers. He would obviously build upon Abraham Maslow and the hierarchy of needs to develop a person-centered theory of counseling, and this will be used worldwide. This is used nowadays in education, in organizations, to develop people while they're actually at work within business. So it's a big thing at the end of the day, and it's interesting. I would tell anybody out there to read some of these propositions within the theory. He's wrote over 16 books, Carl Rogers. I need to study this guy some more. I know I said that I've sort of studied counselling for 3 years, but that's just with a, Doncaster College, the teacher, the basics. What I failed to do was, I suppose, continue in that education and in that field. The only way that I've continued my education over the last couple of years, over the last 5 years, within counselling, would be through following Jordan Peterson. And I think a lot of his points, and he says this himself, are actually built upon the foundations of Carl Rogers and, of course, Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. But for me, it stopped at Rogers. I was like, right, person-centered therapy, that works. That is amazing. It sounds great. And when you look back at some of this stuff, isn't it amazing to know? Isn't it amazing to reflect on? Just looking at the conditions in your own life and in your own foundations. So in order to get to this fully functioning person, Carl Rogers would argue that you need to create a therapeutic relationship that is based upon 3 core conditions. So this is congruence, the willingness to transparently relate to clients without hiding behind a professional or personal facade, and unconditional positive regard. The therapist offers an acceptance and prizing for their clients for who he is, without conveying disapproving feelings, actions, or characteristics, and demonstrating a willingness to attentively listen without interruption, judgment, or giving advice. Empathy. The therapist communicates their desire to understand and appreciate the client's perspective. I could do a full podcast on empathy and how important it is to actually feel empathic towards others, and of course how that relates in your own life and how that makes you a better communicator, a better business person. It's not just about a therapeutic relationship, empathy. It's about actually understanding people, and it's a capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from their frame of reference, not from what you believe. So my counselling tutor displayed it as, if you're sympathetic towards somebody and they're sort of feeling depressed, look at it as them being down a well. If you're sympathetic, you'll climb down the well, you'll give them a hug, and you'll be there with them, in that experience with them, feeling it with them. But if you're empathetic, you stood at the top of the well, there's no judgment, but what you're saying is, I'm here to listen to you, I'm here when you need me, and when you want, I can see what you're going through, I understand what you're going through, I'm not trying to put my perspective on it, which is what I may do with sympathy, or you'll be okay, and pitying you. That's often not what we actually need. We need to have some empathy to be understood, and in business that can help. If you're looking at this from a business standpoint, if you're using empathy with your customers, that allows you to understand the process from their point of view, not from your frame of reference and how you feel it is, bringing them on board as a customer and servicing them. How is it that they are serviced? What is their perspective of this? And then when you're looking at that and you're feeling that and you're understanding that, you can better implement ways in your business to move forward. And this may be within your career, whatever it may be. It's just your relationships, isn't it, at the end of the day? And I know this is about mental health, but mental health, for me, is about becoming a fully functioning person. I think these people are right. There's not been studies and years worth of psychological development and material written on this. And when you look at people such as Jordan Peterson, he will say that I'm only repeating what others have laid out before me. This is thousands and thousands of years worth of truth that I'm trying to bring to light in a simple way. And he started just by getting some popularity online. It's not just by. He had a lot of content online. What people don't realise with this guy Jordan Peterson, he may have came to prominence by it was the legislation basically that made Canada have all these different pronouns for he, ze, they, whatever it may be. I don't know. But basically, these gender pronouns, and he come out against them. But what people don't realise is, on his YouTube channel, he'd had years worth of lectures where we're talking about deep psychological issues and bringing them to the forefront in religious contexts. And it's amazing to... I sat and watched them, and I couldn't tell you what they're about to this day. I've watched them multiple times, his lectures and his talks, and again, read his book. He's got a new book that's out as well that I'd need to listen to. But we're going to look at his two books, and then we'll think about how these compare to what Carl Rogers was saying and the ability to become a fully functioning person. So the first book, divided into 12 chapters, it's 12 rules. The first one, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Second, treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping, which is a big point. Number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. Wow. Number 4, compare yourself with who you were yesterday, not with who someone else is today. Number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Number 6, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world, which is, make your bed and all that stuff that become a very popular meme within his talks. Number 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So again, don't live for your short-term desires. Live for your long-term consequences of your actions. Number 8, tell the truth or at least don't lie. Number 9, assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. So you're actively listening. Number 10, be precise in your speech. Number 11, do not bother children when they are skateboarding, which is a great point, by the way, within the book. Number 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. So how the Beyond Order, the new book that he's got out, which I haven't read yet. 12 Rules for Life I'll listen to when it first come out. So maybe I can re-listen to these books this month, and we'll talk about Jordan Peterson a little bit more, because I think for many of us it's a reintroduction to what we may have been interested in at school. I know many of my friends who I went to college with are fascinated with this guy. Because we sort of studied some of this stuff in his sociology and psychology lessons, and he's sort of bringing it all back to the forefront, but on a more contextual level for today, but also in ways that we can relate, that's easily digestible. So I can't wait to get into this book, but it looks like he's got another 12 rules within his new book, Beyond Order. The book comprises 12 chapters, the titles of which suggest rules for life. Number 1, do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievement. Okay. Number 2, imagine who you could be and then aim single-mindedly at that. Number 3, do not hide unwanted things in the fog. Number 4, Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. Number 5, do not do what you hate. Number 6, abandon ideology. Number 7, work as hard as you possibly can on at least one thing and see what happens. Number 8, try to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. Number 9, if old memories still upset you, write them down carefully and completely. Number 10, plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. Number 11, do not allow yourself to become resentful, deceitful, or arrogant. Number 12, be grateful in spite of your suffering. So I can't wait to get into this because each chapter in the first book was delivered in a great way. It had a story in there, it had context historically in there, whether it's comparing us to lobsters or, of course, I think in the new book he actually talks about Harry Potter. I've heard. So I listened to a couple of his latest interviews and I can't wait to get into this book. But really, what is he saying within these points that, excuse me, hasn't already been said by Carl Rogers and Carl Jung and these people? He's not saying much more, but he's putting it into a way that is easily digestible and he's building upon that. So I do get that, but if you look at the fundamentals and you look at becoming the fully functioning person, and again, just stuff like do not hide unwanted things in the fog, or imagine who you could be and then aim single-mindedly at that. I mean, Carl Rogers and these people talk about the ideal self and working towards that ideal self. And I think that's what Jordan Peterson is trying to facilitate within his talks and his books and encourage within people like myself who need to look at this stuff and need to get my mind right, need to get my life in order. And I like to thank him for that because over the last couple of years, since I started listening to his work, my life is slowly but surely getting better. I can find meaning in stuff. I can find meaning even in suffering. And I look back at things now that I may have been through, the bereavements, the job losses, the identity losses and how I had to rebuild myself, again, losing businesses and all the stuff that comes with life. I know you'll have been through things too that seem like they crush you. I had a text yesterday from a friend, his grandmother has just passed, and it was, I didn't know what to say to him, and I didn't say much. I said, look, I know there's nothing that I can say. They say that these sort of things make us stronger, but from my experience, they don't. They actually make you weaker, but maybe that's the strength. The fact that it makes you weaker may be the strength in the end, because I know it sounds daft, but that weakness and that vulnerability is what makes us strong. So it's like a paradox. It doesn't make you stronger when you experience a bereavement. It crushes you in many ways. I don't think I've laughed as much as I used to do before I went through all this stuff that made my life serious. My life at some point become far too serious. It was all about business and, making a structure and getting things right. And it was never about the spontaneity and being in the moment. It was about, I need to do this and I need to create a business and it needs to make money and I need to survive. And I could never look at becoming a self-actualizing person. Again, going back to the hierarchy of needs, how can you ever look at becoming self-actualized when you don't have the bottom tiers right, when you're not surviving, when you haven't got the basic needs, the physiological needs, which is breathing, food, water, sleep. When you're not doing that right, when you're not feeding yourself, when you're not keeping yourself hydrated, when you're not breathing, what about just simple breathing techniques in order to breathe deeply and breathe right and put your mind right? Because that is by far what many people are actually missing. Just breathe in through your nose deep, belly breaths. Search online for breathing techniques that, decrease anxiety. Safety. How can you look at your self-actualization unless you have got a little bit of security and you've got a family there, you're in good health? Because even if you're on the path to self-actualization and then suddenly your health comes into question, all the stuff that you're doing up there, which is the self-esteem, your confidence, your achievement in life, your respect of others, your respect by others, that'll all be come into question when you go through a health crisis, because you're not thinking about your self-esteem when you're nearly dying, are you? So suppose what I'm trying to say is, look at the foundations at the moment. When it comes to mental health, this is what we've got. We've got a framework over the last 100 years from psychologists that allow us to assess what we need in life in order to feel good and become self-actualized and be the person that we intend to be and achieve our potential and work towards that and get the foundations right within our life. So go back to the basic needs. Look at your level of comfort at the moment and where is that coming from? And then, of course, you may get stuck in life. You may be stuck at a level of comfort. So to achieve the next level, which would be the esteem and the self-actualization, how can you encourage the spontaneity, the creativity, the problem-solving skills that you want to develop, and the test of your morality, your lack of prejudice and your acceptance of facts? How can that be tested? How can you be working towards that? Only when you've got your friendships, your family, your sexual intimacy right, you've got your love and belonging, you've secured your safety net, you are psychologically and physiologically safe in an environment where you feel okay, stable employment, resources. Then you can start looking at your creativity. Then you can start looking at your mental stimulation and your respect by others and how you're revered in a field. And, what you actually want to be known for and your legacy and all that stuff. If you're thinking about all that stuff before you've even got started, you're not going to do, are you? You're never going to consider your legacy and what you leave behind until you've already got the other things sorted. Because before you feel safe and before you are secure in life, before you look to achieve more in your life, you need first to know that you're able to survive and that you've got the safety needs and the love and belonging in your life that you need and the basic necessities in life. So this is what it's about, mental health. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's Mental Health Awareness Week next week. Take a look at your life in this context. Have a look at the hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow. Read some Carl Rogers. Look at some, maybe phone a therapist up who knows all this stuff and go and speak to somebody, because that's what I have had to do. Because through the last month, my mental health has deteriorated massively, and I don't know why. It's a physical health issue, and then that's, sort of made my mental health and sort of blown my life out of the water, basically. And it's not good. I thought I'd get back on the podcast today. I've done a long one. We're nearly at 40 minutes now. I can only imagine if you have listened to this that I've been rambling. But it's about mental health. It's about being open about things. It's about not being perfect in life. And of course, we all come from some form of disorder, and mental health is not what you think it is. It's not about mental illness and all this. It's about being self-actualized. It's about working towards your potential and feeling like you are a fully functioning person and behaving like that as well. Is your actions and the thoughts about yourself congruent? Carl Rogers would say that you are only happy if what you are doing is what you think you are doing. A lot of us, we've got these thoughts about ourselves and this belief about ourselves, but if you actually look at your behaviour, does that reflect what you say in life? And if it doesn't, then you need to be sort of looking at things and looking at your perspective and your self-awareness and your self-perception to make sure that you're not tricking yourself to feel okay in the immediate moment, but actually all you're doing is sort of dividing your personality and causing yourself to have some friction psychologically, because you're tricking yourself on a daily basis, telling everybody that you are this person that you're not, and telling yourself that you are a person that you're not, whereas your actions don't actually are not congruent. They are not the same as what you believe them to be. And that is a trap that we all need to sort of escape. If look at your actions and observe yourself, and I think that will help your mental health. So thanks a lot for your time. It's a Pit Village podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening. And of course, if this can help anybody out there, and you are looking at the foundations of your mental health, and you're wanting to feel better, or the last year has impacted you, speak to people, reach out. There's the Samaritans, there's your friends, there's your family, and just, take some time out from the busyness of life and focus on yourself. Thanks a lot for your time. All the best, as always. We're sponsored by Prospect 27. It's pay monthly websites.